All right. Hello, everyone. So the webinar today is going to focus on what's new in Genero version 6. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Informix 15 as well and what's new in Informix 15. And so we have our friends from HCL Actian here as well. So a little bit about today's speaker. So hi, I'm Michael Folcher. So I manage professional services here at 4Js. And then from HCL, we have Emily. Emily is the product manager. And then we have Nick. Nick is the senior product marketing manager. And so they're from HCL. So we'll just talk a little bit about the agenda today. All right, so we'll talk about all of the new UI UX features that are available in Genero version 6. We'll talk a little bit about application monitoring and some of the new features that are added into Genero for that. And then we'll talk about web services and encryption, database support, and a little bit about Informix 15, what are the new features there? And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. And that's where we'll answer all your questions. All right, let's get started. Genero version 6. All right, so first up, the UI features. So as you can see here on the screenshot on the left, so the browser client with version 6 is kind of re-implemented how the active programs in Windows show up. So now you'll have a side rail bar on the left-hand side that's going to have all your open programs, and then you can click on the 9 square button, and that'll open up a larger view where you can see more descriptive information about all of your applications. So the Chrome bar has already also been redesigned. Things are a little bigger and they're organized a little differently. The other thing too is if you have a on action back, you'll have a back button on the left-hand side of the Chrome bar. So similar to what you would experience with a mobile application. And then also the browser client has been optimized for touch, right? So more and more laptops and obviously the mobile devices are touch is the main way people use the screen. So we've incorporated that into the product. So from a browser client, again, from a widget standpoint, so we've added a bunch of new things. So the first thing is multi-column sort. And so we had gotten this request, a bunch of times, is that customers want to be able to sort multiple columns. So now the user can sort, however many columns they want. They can reset the sort. And then there's just an order to it, right? Sorting first, second, third, fourth, and then obviously you can do ascending, descending. In addition, you can actually also specify the sort in code. So if you want, if a certain table should always be sorted by this column or these 2 columns first, you can do that in code. So the next thing is the phone number field. So we have a phone edit now that allows for a multinational phone numbers. So you basically select the country and then it'll format the phone number string, however that country formats their strings. And so you can see a illustration of that on the left-hand side. We've also added a tag edit field. So this is when you have multiple values for a single record, instead of having like a display array or an input array just for that one value. Now you can do a tag edit, and that can be both. You can do that with a completer, or it can just be free text. And then the last thing is the multi-dialog support. So in previous versions, if you had a modal window and then you opened up a second modal window, the first modal window disappeared and then you just had the second one. And then when you dismissed the second one, the first one came back. So now it'll stack on top. So you'll be able to see that first modal window, even though the second one has, the focus. And this is just really so users don't get confused, right? They kind of understand where they are within the window stack. So for Report Writer, so we've added some features here for dynamic tables. So the first is the dynamic sizing. The tables will now size based on the content that's in them at runtime, right? So if similar to HTML tables, if you have wide content or if you have multi rows, it'll it'll size dynamically in order to fit the largest value for that column or row. And then also we've added more granular controls on the cell properties themselves, right? So you can set the colors, fonts, borders, margins, padding, again, a lot of things that you can do in HTML and CSS. You can do those within the report writer designer. So chatbot. So we've added chatbot into our documentation now. So you can give it natural language questions, and then it'll respond to you. It'll give you an answer, and then it'll also give you links into the documentation, so you can drill in then and see more information. And then it also understands context, right? So you can ask follow-up questions based on your initial questions, and then it'll understand the context. So it's really helpful. We've been using this internally for about 6 months now, and it's kind of my go-to when I need to look up in the documentation. So the Genero theme customizer. So traditionally, if you needed to customize the browser client, you'd essentially need to download the project, and then you would need to, have a programmer make changes to it, recompile it, and then build out the package. So the theme customizer kind of breaks this and lets the designer go and they can design their own theme using the theme customizer, and then they can create a theme, build it, and it'll give you an archive then that you can then either deploy internally or for your customers. So it allows a kind of, breaks the paradigm where, you have a designer who can design and they don't need to be a programmer in order to build your CBC themes. Application monitoring. So this is one of the requests that we had gotten for the last couple of years. So we've added Prometheus support into the product. So Prometheus is an open source toolkit that allows you to monitor pretty much the full stack, right? From the operating system to the services layer and to the application layer as well. And so we've added Prometheus monitoring into our products. So that means that the Genero application server, the identity provider, licensing manager, and report engine will all, if it's configured, it'll all feed in metrics into Prometheus. So in addition, I'll go to point number 1 here. You can actually then also put code in if you need to track certain things. Like think about every time a user logs in, right? You might want to track the session, maybe who the user is, and then what programs they're running. Or every time they open a window, you might want to track that. Every time the application closes, you might want to do that. You can do all that within code, especially if you have library routines that handle a lot of that behavior. You can add in metric gathering there and then report on it so you can get a better understanding of how your application is being used, the health of your application throughout its life cycle. Just jumping down here to number 3. So one of the things that we've added into the Genero identity provider is we've added the ability to delegate the authentication to a third party as long as that third party supports OpenID Connect. So think about if you are using Microsoft AD Azure, or if you're using Google to do your authentication, now the user doesn't have to have a separate username and password for Genero. You can delegate that authentication to your third-party provider, but you can still manage the accounts, and then you can also manage the authorization within the Genero identity provider. So it adds a nice separation there. So for cryptography, we've added support for SSL 3.5, and then also added a new algorithm, the ECD SA. And for web services, so we've added full API or open API support. And so we've added JSON attributes. So JSON pattern, JSON all of, and JSON enum. So you can create an enumeration. So think about if a field is a yes, no field, right? You might say, okay, the only acceptable values are Y and N. And so you'll get an exception if you try to deserialize the data and it doesn't match that value. Same thing with a pattern, right? You can do a SSN pattern or a phone number pattern, do a regular expression as an attribute and make sure that the data is adhering to that pattern. So before I show Informix 15, I did want to just do a demo quick of some of these new features. All right, so you can see here I have a couple different programs running. So this is the new side rail that I mentioned before. So I have a start menu here. So I have my start menu defined here. And then I also have the active applications. I just happen to be running all of my applications. And then I can pin this, or I can have it float. So for the phone number field, I'll show a quick demo here. I'll say Jones. All right, so now I can select the country, France. All right, and then so you see here, the placeholder is showing the format of it. I'll just put in some numbers, and then it's going to format it. And then you can see it obviously here in the display array as well. Go to the favorites. So the favorites list is just users or people and their favorite color and their favorite food. And so I want to show this in two ways. So I talked about you can use a completer, right? So I will put in blue. And I will say black. Oh no, I'll do blush pink. Okay. So you can see here, I can also use the X here to remove individual ones, or I can use the X over here just to clear out the whole list. Maybe I want to do the yellow instead. Here we go. And then so for the favorite foods, this does not have a completer. So in this case, the user would have to put in a semicolon to separate them. And I'll do that once. And you can see the list. This is what it looks like within the list here with the tags. All right. So for the next, I'll just demo the the modal windows. So you can see here now, you can see the previous one, and then obviously when I dismiss this one, it'll go back to the previous one. And then the last, multi-sort. So just like you would do before, you can click and sort. Now, if I just click, right, it'll replace the sort. But in this case, if I click on the Alt key, and now you can see I'm sorting by date first, and then this Boolean value. I'll change it again to do descending. And then finally, I will do the decimal field. So I'll click on the Alt key again, and I want to do it descending as well. And then you can clear it, obviously. You could also do it programmatically. So I just have this window. I will do my date first. And do this character string next. And then so you can see here, where's the character one? Over here, the user can also do sorting. In this case, it doesn't make sense because the character one's unique. But I did want to show you too, when you clear, it clears the user sort, but it doesn't clear the programmatic sort. The programmatic sort will always stay, and the only way you can clear it out is programmatically, because that's how you added it. And I know we do have some people that export this data to Excel, and I just wanted to point out that those properties are readable, just like they were before in the AUI tree. All right. So the last thing I wanted to show is the chatbot. So I'm going to ask it a question. How do I create a dialog state, construct, and display array within it? Right. All right. So you can see here, it gives me an answer. And then it also links into the documentation. If I click on this, right, it'll drill right down into the documentation. Right. Go back to the presentation. All right. So with Informix 15, they added the concept of large tables. So you can, by default, your tables will be the same. They'll be small tables, but you can also have large tables. So large tables hold a lot more data. The other thing they do because of that is the row ID needed to be expanded from 4 bytes to 8 bytes. So in Genero, we've changed the SQL CA data structure to hold those 8 bytes. And then the other thing too is we've added a new ODI driver for Informix 15. All right. So with that, that's the V6 Genero presentation. So now I'm going to kick it over to Emily and Nick, and they're going to talk about Informix 15.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. So we're going to go over what is HCL Informix. So it's one of the most common questions that we get. Then we'll go over why you should modernize with HCL Informix. And then Emily will go through what's new in HCL Informix 15. So what is HCL Informix? So one of the most common questions we hear from prospects is what is HCL Informix and how is it different from IBM Informix? So HCL Informix is the same product as IBM Informix. So HCL Informix product parity aligns with IBM Informix Advanced Enterprise Edition, which is the most complete and advanced version of Informix. The Actian team collaborates closely with IBM on the joint product roadmap and releases together. So how did we get here? So as many of you may know, Informix was founded in 1980 as relational database systems. And in 1981, we released the first version of Informix. In 1986, the company changed its name to Informix Corporation and went public. But in 2001, it sold its database subsidiary to IBM. And then in 2005, the remaining parts of Informix were acquired by IBM. In 2017, IBM and HCL Technologies entered a strategic partnership to accelerate Informix development. So Actian is the database subsidiary of HCL Software, which is why HCL Informix is owned and operated by IBM. So all of the recent versions of Informix, so 14.10 and 15, were released within the IBM and HCL partnership. So why modernize with HCL Informix? Many of you may be at a crossroads. Your mission critical applications might be on old or unsupported versions of Informix. And as your organizations are pushed or forced to modernize their infrastructure, including their database, you might be thinking about how to modernize to improve your return on investment without disrupting day-to-day operations. So the reasons for modernizing your applications are clear. So if you're using IBM Informix off of support, you risk security and compliance disaster. So if there's a cyber attack, it can take you days to find someone to help you, leaving your sensitive data exposed. Most companies want data flexibility and scalability. So organizations are capturing and storing and utilizing more data than ever, and their modern applications need to be able to handle these increasing volumes. Previously, many applications may have lived in their own independent world, but now many companies want to make sure that all of their data from all applications across the company is centralized and governed in a systematic way. Modernizing your applications means more agile business operations. So maybe you're updating your green screen apps to a more user-friendly app UI like Genero, for example, that can be used by anyone, increasing the ability for employees to self-serve. And lastly, with a centralized repository of data, you can use that data to identify trends, predict outcomes, and better understand your customers. So we know that data-driven companies are 23 times more likely to top their competitors in customer acquisition, 19 times more likely to stay profitable, and 7 times more likely to retain their customers. So what should you do about your out of support IBM Informix applications? So there's really three options. First, you could do nothing and risk obsolescence, a security breach, or a fine for not being GDPR or CCPA compliant. Two, you could spend millions of dollars hiring new IT teams or consultants to help you rip and replace your database by moving all of your data from your existing instance to a new one and rebuild and refactor your applications from scratch. But there's a third option, and you could upgrade to HCL Informix 15 and use your existing application infrastructure that is supported by Actian and compliant with your regional and industry data standards. So you can use our APIs and connectors to integrate your Informix applications with the rest of your data environment and continue to improve your applications using iterative DevOps best practices. So we think that the best and least disruptive and economical option is to modernize with HCL Informix. That choice is ultimately up to you and your organization. All right, and I will hand it off to Emily.
Thanks so much, Nick. All right, so I am excited today to bring you some of the highlights of HCL Informix v15, which was first launched almost exactly a year ago in November 2024. So it's been out in market for about a year now. Today, we're just going to talk about 4 key highlights, including an update to HCL Informix 4GL, the ability that we've introduced to manage significantly larger data sets without the need to fragment tables, which Mike already alluded to, the ability to facilitate faster archives using invisible indexes, and lastly, the ability to easily evaluate an index's utility. All right, so just a quick announcement about 4GL. Approximately 4 to 5 months before we had the v15 release, on the HCL side of the house, we introduced our HCL branded version of 4GL and ISQL as well. Previously, it had been many years since we had been making 7.51 FC3 available, predominantly and only through the IBM channels. But with the introduction of v15, as Mike already spoke about, because of the changes to the large table structure, we needed to put in some changes to 4GL to support, provide basic support for the large table structure. And so the 751 FC4 release was produced in summertime. So just a quick note that if you are still using 4GL somewhere within your estate, in addition to Genero, then just be aware that if you're going to leverage the FC4 version, that you will need to recompile all of your dependent applications. So again, this was just to bring it up to par so that it could be still compatible with large tables. So thank you. And moving on to the most exciting feature of the release. Again, this is really a culmination of over 2 years of concerted effort by the entire Informix engineering team, with hundreds of thousands of lines of code and all of our components really touched, is the ability to enhance our scalability from a storage perspective. So we now have larger row and page addresses that enable organizations to use large data sets, extremely large data sets, without putting in the time and effort to compress or partition the data. So with the release of HCL Informix 15, our max table size has grown 134 million times. The max chunk size grew by 2.25 million times, and the max storage overall grew to 4.2 million times larger than we used to have in version 14.10. All right. So specifically, let's talk about the numbers here for those of you who are interested. The maximum number of pages in an Informix table now has increased from 16.5 million to 140 trillion. The maximum page size used to be 16 kilobytes and is now 256 KBs. And the maximum size of a chunk on Linux used to be 4 terabytes. Now it is 8 exabytes. So the maximum number of chunks has doubled from about just over 32,000 to 65,000. So if you do the math on that, you'll find that the max table size is now 36 exabytes, and the max storage has increased to half a yottabyte. And I know when we first started working on this release, that is a lot of zeros. The exabytes is 1 plus about 18 zeros, and the yottabyte is a 1 plus 24 zeros after it. So this is a really large number. Okay, to put that in perspective, next slide, just a quick little visual. And thanks to Nick and our friends in product marketing, I think this visual helps to understand that the total max storage capacity now for a single Informix instance is now roughly 4 times the estimated size of the entire internet today. So hopefully for those customers who had been in prior years running up against some of the limits and having to deal with fragmenting the database, that will no longer be an issue. Probably for the entire career span, I think that probably everyone on the phone will be around for today, or let's hope. All right. So the next feature that I would like to share as a highlight of v15 release is the ability to improve your archiving speed through external storage of smart blobs. So the DBAs and developers now have more flexibility to create faster archives by basically assuming control of how and where we store the smart blobs. So smart blobs, for those who may not be familiar, refer to both binary large objects, blobs, and character large objects, clobs. So we've got blobs and clobs for data types. So these could be images, video, audio, pictures, text documents, etc. And typically, HCL Informix stores the smart blob objects in special storage spaces called SB spaces. External SB spaces enable developers to now store those large objects in an external file system while only keeping a record of the metadata within Informix. So users effectively are extracting what used to be the metadata plus the files into an external metadata stays, and the data itself moves to external file system. So the users can create that special smart blob space within HCL Informix to store the metadata, while the actual objects are stored externally in individual files that can be manipulated. So the external smart blob spaces support transactional work, including rollbacks of deletes, and this feature enables organizations to create archives much faster, since only the metadata is now being backed up by Informix. So because the large object data is stored in the file system, DBAs and developers have control over their management, and it means that these could be compressed, for example, or older objects could be archived and even removed from the file system to be retrieved on an as-needed basis later. So moving on to our last highlight feature that I want to share today, I'd like to talk a little bit about invisible indexes. So the invisible index feature introduced in v15 helps developers or DBAs painlessly determine whether an index is really important for your application performance and can help with tuning. So you can optimize your queries faster by understanding whether or not the index has underlying impact on a specific query. And to really understand how this works, it's good first just to make sure everybody understands how the queries work without the indexes. So when running a query, the default is to run the query against the entire database. So when you have a very large database with trillions of rows, for example, it could take hours to receive response from a single query. Indexes can help point the query to the sections of the table that you want to run your query against. So you can think of it like a filter. So you can now, with v15, you have the ability to set an index to an invisible to prevent the query optimizer from considering it. And exclusive access to the table is not required for this operation. And meanwhile, the index is still maintained in the background during DML operations. Okay. So after making one or more of your indexes invisible, you can test your application and check to see whether or not performance has suffered. If it has, you can instantly just make the index visible again without having to rebuild anything. If performance was unaffected, you can drop the unneeded indexes and simplify your schema and reduce your overall footprint. And I think this is one of the best received features of the release, because we've had multiple partners provide feedback to us that it's enabled them to help identify and resolve SQL performance issues much more efficiently. We've heard reports coming back anywhere in the neighborhood from 10% time savings all the way up to 20 to 25% less time now spent on examining and resolving performance issues. So we will take that, and hopefully everyone is running with that once they upgrade to v15. All right. Moving on to the next slide, I just would like to mention, we won't go into these in a lot of detail here, but if I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I would call these some of our other popular features that we introduced, our capabilities that we introduced in v15. So features of note include our CDC, our change data capture, is now supported on all secondary server types. Previously, it was supported only on standalone or primary servers, but now it's also supported on secondary server types, including HDR, RSS, or SDS configurations. The next item I'd like to highlight is the ability to convert a local key store into a network key store. Previously, this was only possible to do in the reverse direction. And now in v15, you are able to convert from a local key store into a network instead of just from a network into a local. So the benefit of having this option is that it reduces friction if you want to deploy your database in the cloud, for example. And last but not least, I'd like to mention that we've also introduced on-the-fly query plans to save time and CPUs, so you don't have to use resources rerunning queries to diagnose issues. So in version 14.10, you can output the optimizer's plan for the query, but you have to ask for it ahead of time with a set explain statement. In v15, you now have a query. If you have a query running longer than expected, you can display the plan as an afterthought, and you don't have to anticipate actually needing the plan. So I think that's it for sort of the greatest hits or Cliff Notes highlights for v15. For those of you who have not yet upgraded from an older version such as 14.10 to v15, I would like to close out my portion of the conversation today by making sure that everybody is aware that Actian, the Actian Professional Services team or organization is happy to offer assistance with different organizations getting started with planning or executing your upgrade. And we do provide blocks of contracted service support to help you maintain and administer your database, which is great for organizations who may not have a dedicated DBA. And lastly, our services team can also advise you on how to, just on an ongoing basis, how to optimize your database and your applications, test your backups and system regularly to ensure it's running smoothly. And to close out, I also would like to mention that we have conducted several of these HCL Informix upgrade workshops to date over the last year. We're making still this option available for a limited time to those who would be interested in signing up to participate in one of the free HCL Informix upgrade workshops. This gives you 8 hours of one-on-one expert advice with our Actian consulting services or professional support team, where we will cover off, the team will cover off a review of the existing database, custom modernization recommendations, and a step-by-step approach. So if you're interested in that, please do make note of the URL or scan the barcode and save it. I also saw in the chat earlier that there was a question about how the materials, including this information, will come out later. So that will be sent, the recording will be sent. I think I saw the answer about 5 minutes after the session completes, so that will be available to you. So thank you very much for hanging out to listen to some of the highlights from V15. And I will pass the baton back over to Mike, and I believe we're going to open the floor now for general Q&A.
Thank you, Nick and Emily. All right. So a question, I guess the first one for the HCL, are smart blobs supported as a native data type in Genero 6? Actually, it's a Genero question. So no, it's a great question. So you would basically have to do it like you would do any other blob type, where you can you would have to so you can fetch the data, but you'd have to put it into like either an in-memory or a file, and then work with it like you would do any other kind of binary object. So we have another question. Hi, Emily. Do you recommend the utilization of ER feature of Informix 15 on migrating to pub sub in the best option? Is the best option? Sorry,
I'm scrolling through the question. I think to give you the best answer for that, that's a perfect option that we can talk about in the upgrade workshop. And I would be happy to get back to you on whether or not that would be the best option. Probably depends on your specific configuration. It's definitely an option, but whether or not it is the best option, I would defer to our consulting services experts during one of the upgrade sessions. Thanks.
right. And then the next question was, how does HCL Informix integrate with modern data ecosystems or data lakes?
You can take this one, Emily. So we do have our REST API and connectors. So that's the main way that we integrate with data ecosystems and data lakes. But similar to what Emily said, for your specific situation, you can ask some of the professional services folks in the workshop that you guys sign up for, and they can give you a tailored response to your specific answer.
And yeah, and I don't know if you can still hear me, but we also have, as far as just, ongoing integration into different modern data ecosystems, you do still have use of the standard drivers, including the ODBC, JDBC connectors, and many different APIs like the CDC data sync is one of the commonly used tools to replicate. I think that Nick may have just mentioned that, to replicate Informix data. You can do that with batch or CDC into data lakes like AWS S3 or Azure, or streaming systems like Kafka. And we also might be remiss if I didn't mention that along with Informix, we also have additional complementary offerings on the Actian side, including our data platform, and which has integration as a service and data observability tools that would help you to manage, govern, and monitor Informix data once it's part of the modern data stack. So just wanted to add that. Thanks.
All right. So for the next question was for IBM Informix customers locked with older versions of Informix and 4GL. What's your advice? Move to HCL, Informix 15, and Genero 6. If you're on an older version, especially one that's not in support or in maintenance, I think it's the best option to do is to move to 15 and Genero. I'm guessing that the HCL people would agree.
And I would add that, the older the version is, the more things that you'll have to work through. So that's why we recommend that workshop in the services team so that they can help you with your specific instance and get you upgraded. But yes, the migration path is the best option. How you will approach that problem may differ on the version that you're on.
So yes, depending how old it is or new it is, it may be just a one-step migration or potentially a multi-step migration, depending how far back. I know when we were just in Orlando last month for the IBM Tech Exchange, there were some individuals who were still using version, I think 11.5 or 11.7. So it would definitely be a little bit more complicated because they had not yet upgraded even to 12 or 14. So that would be a great opportunity, again, to come to one of the upgrade workshops and find out the specifics for your unique situation. I don't think the person who input the question mentioned which version specifically you're coming from.
All right, so the next question, how does HCL Informix 4GL work with 4J's Genero for app modernization? So I think if you have a 4GL application right now and you need to modernize it, I mean, Genero obviously is the best path since, Genero is a superset of Informix 4GL. So you can get started right away, recompile your code and run it as is with Genero and then start modernizing over time. There is also a webinar that we did a couple months ago. So you should probably contact maybe your regional salesperson about maybe getting a recording of that webinar so that you can take a look and understand. And then obviously I think it, like a lot of things that we talked about, probably needs to have a conversation then, because it's going to be specific to your environment and your system. All right. So the next one, hello, what tools or automation does Acteon offer to help modernize existing applications?
Pretty much answered that already in the context of what we offer from an Informix perspective, as well as some complementary offerings that we have within the Acteon portfolio that customers can use.
All right, so the next one is a generic question. Does the new container management in GBC replace the tabbed container feature? So the tabbed containers have been deprecated for a while. And so as you saw from the quick demo, is the container management is a much cleaner, elegant way of handling that. So you should really plan on moving to the container management when you upgrade to V6. So next, can you explain what's included in the HCL Informix free upgrade workshop?
So there is essentially two sessions that you will be a part of. So one of them is a session that is held as a group with our professional services team, just kind of explaining the different options for modernizing. And then there's also a 4-hour personalized session with an individual on the professional services team to help you with your exact instance. So this will be held remotely through Zoom or Google Meet. But it will make sure that you go through your entire database instance with an expert and just kind of view all of the components and settings of your database to ensure that you can migrate and upgrade to the latest version.
And actually, Mike, if I can just jump back in. Sorry, I think I was rereading the question in the chat as a duplicate of the earlier one, but there is actually kind of a slight nuance difference. So the second question that you just asked before this was what options Acteon offers to help modernize. So I wanted to also mention, I was just reminded that we have produced an entire guide called our HCL Informix modernization checklist. So if you have not seen that, we have we have multiple different ebooks, again, that Nick and our product marketing team have helped to produce. So you may want to check out the HCL Informix modernization checklist as one option if you haven't seen it. And then additional tools to modernization that we do offer if you have not already become familiar with it are options for containerization in Kubernetes environments, So that is another modernization option just for HCL Informix within the Actian portfolio. And then the tools that I had mentioned earlier, such as the data observability and Actian platform, that would be complementary. So those earlier pieces I had mentioned, but I think that that modernization guide or modernization checklist, as well as our migration guide, if you're just upgrading, is one more tool that we didn't mention earlier that might be that's part of the product documentation for those folks who are on older versions. And the question came up about what do we recommend? Of course, going to the latest version. Please do check out the migration guide in the product documentation, and then also attend the workshop. So thank you. Sorry to go backwards on that one, Mike.
Yes, no problem. So I think the next question is how seamless is it to migrate existing Informix databases to version 15? And I think you kind of answered that before. If you're on a pretty new version, it's really seamless. If you're on an older version, maybe not so seamless.
Might be a little more work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I think then this one is a duplicate about the customers on older versions of Informix and 4GL, what's your advice to move? So we already said, yeah, move to 15 and Genero 6. So the chatbot feature. So hi, Mike, the chatbot for Genero documentation is great. When will Genero support building chatbots for your own documentation so that developers can build this into their own applications? So it's confusing whether it's about, so you want your source code documentation to use a chatbot, or you want a chatbot in your application. So I think, so if you wanted it to consume the documentation that you can create from the Genero code, you know, there's products and services that can do that. I know we've talked about building in chatbot, a UI widget, but it's not currently in version 6. So I would say if that's something that you're looking for, that you would probably want to push that, talk to your regional Genero, you know, sales or customer care people, and you know, just let them know that that's a feature that you would like to see in the product. So the next one is about sharing the QR code. So I think I was a little late, Emily, switching the slide, but so you're going to get a recording of this, so you can pause it when the QR code's there and scan it, and then sign up.
Also dropped it in the chat.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. That's even better, Nick. Thank you.
And
All right.
I think our contact information is provided along with the deck as well. So please always feel free to reach out individually via email anytime. I'm emily.taylor@hcl-software.com. So we love to hear from customers, partners, and the community. So thanks for joining today.
Yeah, so there's another question. When purchasing Informix, can it only be purchased from HCL or can it be purchased from IBM?
As you know, historically, IBM, as Nick also spoke about earlier in the session, all versions, including the two latest versions, the two active lines, 14.10 and 15, are available for purchase through IBM or directly through Actian at HCL Software. When purchased through Actian, you will get the HCL branded version of the product. If you purchase from IBM, you will get the IBM branded version of the product. Again, Nick mentioned both are completely similar in terms of feature parity. When you look at the advanced enterprise edition of IBM Informix, that is the equivalent product to HCL Informix. So it has all of the bells and whistles. Hopefully that answers your question.
And just to add to that, Emily, if you are interested in kind of what's the difference between the editions with IBM and HCL, I dropped a link to the edition comparison chart. So that kind of explains the different capabilities in each edition, so that you can make the best choice.
So for the next question, is there any kind of IDE to customize the Genero theme? So the Genero theme customizer, which I talked about with one of the slides, so that is an IDE specific for designers, right? So it's a it's kind of drag and drop, design out your Genero theme the way that you want it, and then you build it, and then it gives you the archive. So yes, there's an IDE for the Genero theme. If you're interested in the theme customizer, I would suggest reaching out to your customer care or your local sales rep. So for next, Action Ingress has both OLTP and OLAP engines. Will X100 vector engine will be integrated in the future of HCL Informix. So Action Ingress has both OLTP and OLAP engines. Will X100 vector engine will be integrated in the future of HCL Informix?
So that actually is a project that we are considering and have started some active work on. I don't have the actual delivery date, but that is something that we are considering for future delivery.
And just for the audience, the OLTP, that's the transactional. OLAP is the analytics engine. The X100 engine in Ingress is the analytics engine. So that's what the question is asking.
All right, so we got two more questions, one for HCL and one for 4Js. So, so is HCL Informix only cloud-based, or is it on-premise available?
Is available on-prem as well as cloud options that are containers, standalone containers. And we also have marketplace offerings. I think that may be one of the differentiators, just as far as access or availability between IBM and HCL, that we do have commercially on the commercial marketplaces for AWS and Azure. You can subscribe to either version 14.10 or version 15 as direct subscriptions via the hyperscaler marketplaces. And those options today are VMs. And in the future, we are hoping to also bring the containerized offerings to the marketplace as well.
So for the last question, for the export to Excel feature that I showed in Genero v6, is that an original function, or is it still using the Apache POI? So that used the Apache POI. So I had a library that I built a while ago that took a table and allowed you to export it to Excel, and it looked at which columns were hidden, the order of the columns, the sort order. And since the sorting was changed, I needed to redo how the sorting was compared to in version 6. And so since I had done that, I thought it would be nice to show in the demo, because I think we have other customers that are doing something similar. And the way that you determine what is sorted in the AUI tree changed, because obviously now, instead of being able to sort by one column and ascending and descending, now you can sort by multiple columns. So the whole way that ODI handles that had changed. So one is I wanted to make sure that it was still possible, which it is. And then the second one is that I needed to change my library so it's compatible with version 6. And then I figured, well, I'll show it because it had I don't know if you noticed, but the table had every data type that we support. And so that was it. All right, so I think we're good now. We went through all the questions. That was great. All right, so I'm going to go just back to the presentation quick. So just some general information. So Genero version 6 is in what we call EPA, right? So early access program right now. So any one of our customers can sign up and join the EAP. Obviously, it's only has a couple more weeks. So the EPA closes on the 10th of December, and then December 11th is general availability. And then if you need any more information, please contact, just use the email there, contact@4js.com. All right, thanks. And with that, I thank everyone for attending. We got a lot of good questions, so that was great, and have a good day. All right, I'm going to end it now. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Emily and Nick, for being part of this. I appreciate it.
Thanks, team. Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye.